really wanted to so apparently it's been decided, like, at least on my site, that it's just too much effort or something to get a sub for me to watch your class while my class is in session. So I literally like told my class today, this is your assignment. And then I clicked onto yours. And then when my next group got in today for my third period, I was like, you're going to do this. And then we're going to talk about it in 15 minutes. And they were like, okay, because they're good kids.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are like, I couldn't teach at the same time. So I have to plan accordingly. And luckily, like, I have good kids this year. And so, but there have been a few things that I have learned that are like non-negotiables for subs. And I'm learning that this is one of those things that, like, I really just have to demand a sub for. So, but anyways, on Tuesday, I was doing another observation, and because of what period it was, it would have been significantly easier had I been able to just like record it and then go back and watch it later. Except that in order to do that, then like you have to have the permission of all of your students. Actually, you don't, as long as you tell them all to leave their cameras off. You don't, but like I didn't have permission, so I couldn't do it. So
okay.
So I had to just watch. So today, at least, it was easy. I could like come in. I loved the link that you put up for like the students for like the digital text that they went through, like with all the different examples and things. That was really good. I liked how interactive that was. It wasn't just a read this. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times kids are like, oh, words. Oh, we can't do that. But that was not just words. It was like, what do you see? And I found myself like going through the stuff. I'm like, no. The one where it says like the purple dot spinning and like, can you see the green dot? I'm like, no. And then I like read the directions and did it. I was like, ooh. So yeah. Anyways, so it was good to get to see what the students were reading and not just like see it on your screen, but like actually see the link for them to go through, which was good. I do wish, I mean, I know it takes a certain amount of time to get through stuff, and I wish this for my own class as well. I wish that you had had a little bit more time at the very end to like have a discussion with them about it, because by the time that video ended, it was like, oh, it's time to go. And that's not anybody's fault at this point. That's just we are so short on time. We're just trying to get the content in. And so just if you were to use like the same lesson next year, which I think is a great way to teach something like that. You'll have more time, hopefully,
right?
To build more stuff. If they make us go back to school with 31-minute periods, it might kill somebody. So, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that some more discussion at the end probably would have been a good way for you to just like quick assess like who was even paying attention. Right. But I know you have your question for that as well, and your students know that they have that question, and so as long as they're meeting that expectation. So
yeah, because it's a less than 25-minute class, and
right,
considering you have about 54-minute periods, that leaves 30 extra minutes. So it's like all of the lessons I formatted for Google Classroom in that 25-minute period right now to do the online learning part could easily be extended each day to like a 30-minute laboratory or an extension activity where it's a discussion or some sort of practice worksheet to go along with the content, anything like that. At least I kind of designed it so that it's the content. They're giving that amount of info to sort of set them up for knowing, what's the main idea, and then kind of extending and demonstrating, okay, how do we actually understand it? That's what I would need the extra 30 minutes for.
Yes.
On site.
I know.
So for sure.
I have found that. I know I'm actually right now really glad. So we've talked about this. I don't really have a pacing guide for U.S. history. Each school kind of has their own thing. And so I'm glad I got so far ahead at the end of first semester, because now that we're in second semester and the things tend to be a little more relevant to like the modern lives of, people in our country, my students want to spend more time on it. And now I can split stuff into days because I got through so many standards first quarter or first semester. But I also know that like your guys' standards list is like out of control compared to mine. So yeah. All right. So with my questions, it says, as you think back over the lesson, how would you describe how it went in class today?
I think because I've had, so that particular website, the American Natural History Museum, I had practice with it one time before this,
Okay.
where I was surprised to see that website come up again, and it's a great resource because it's like it had multiple types of quiz games and interactive things for like fossil hunting and paleontology. And so I was excited when I saw that link pop up again related to the same museum. So I was like, okay, well, I know this is going to be good because we've already experienced this. And I know this entire website is going to be functional because no students reported that they couldn't load it or it didn't work, anything like that. So with that in mind, it seemed like it went well. No one really said they couldn't get into the website. It's not data heavy. It's just kind of old school, like, click through the website and see some stuff. And that works better for education in a lot of cases because
it does. It does. Well, and it does help that with the Museum of Natural History, it's a website that someone pays significant money to keep maintained, as opposed to some of the smaller companies that try to run their own things. So that was great. All right. So what, if anything, did you notice about your students during the lesson today?
In this case, of course, it's hard in this format to know how many people were actually engaging with the text.
Oh, I know.
And how many were actually like just kind of enjoying it and just didn't say anything, or just weren't looking through it and weren't watching the video. It's hard to say. I can only know that info based on who does the assessments and who does the assessment correctly. So it's kind of hard to notice anything about the students in this format, unfortunately. But I can at least trust that the students have dealt with this format enough that they know what the expectation is. So I can pretty safely assume, even if they weren't engaging with it in that moment, they'll probably try later.
That's good.
On their own time.
How many of your kids have already gone in and answered that question?
I can look right now.
Okay.
So you got 14 out of 36 that was assigned.
Okay. So. Which honestly is probably like roughly average, right? I mean, I know that's kind of where we're all sitting as far as that sounds so horrible. As far as like productive students, that's about what we're getting. So but that actually helps me answer, like it says, what evidence did you see the students were learning and understanding? They've answered your question for you, which is the expectation. So they are meeting that for you.
Yeah, and you see the way I format my multiple choice questions, they're really loaded to where there's a lot of content. In just how you answer that one question.
Which is nice because they can't just like click through it. Oh, it's this one. Let's just move on. They have to actually read and assess which answer is going to be the correct one.
Yep. And that's something I remember from my science classes, especially my zoology class, which is all the animal groups and stuff. We had this one instructor and he had like the most monstrous multiple choice questions.
Nice.
And he had them in this form where it's like A, B, C, A and B, none of the above.
Oh, I hate those.
So like I'm kind of prepping them for, are we going to get questions like that on our testing? Also, in doing it that way, it's also allowing them to kind of like, okay, you really need to know the answer. Because if it's just a quick, there's only 4 options in a multiple choice question, and it's one of the options, there's no all of the above, no A and C, then it's not really testing, do you know all of that content? So I think the depth at which you make a multiple choice question is going to determine how well your students actually understand it. Because you can't just guess in that case.
Yeah. So the next thing says, how did what occurred compare to what you had intended? So based on what your lesson plan is, did the class go the way you anticipated it going today?
Yeah, the timing was pretty much on point as far as what I was expecting, because I've just had so much practice with it at this point.
Right.
That I've even planned out, okay, I know if I wait 2 minutes before I start this lesson, I'll get at least like 8 more students to join.
Right.
And then that's just less time having to go back and re-explain. And even for the ones who do join late, all the instructions are always on the page for that assignment. So there's a lot of cues for them to figure out, okay, what should I be doing?
Right.
Whether even in the calendar, I've used the calendar
Yes.
for each observation, and it always has exact instructions. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we did yesterday.
Right.
That's due today. The basics, where it's not overcomplicated at the same time. You can just kind of just read it real quick and you know what's going on.
That's good. All right. Let's see. There's literally like 100 questions on here, so I'm just gonna skim really quick. Hang on.
Okay.
So when you were planning the lesson, like what did you notice about your own thinking and decision making? Like what it says. What did you notice about the way you planned the lesson today?
I definitely thought about the word choice of the assessment, because I was happy to see that this particular website was consistent with how the resource I had before used the same information. So when it uses the phrase sensory information, those two words together kind of like talk about not just I'm perceiving the information in my environment, it's also I'm using my senses to do that.
Right.
So the fact that this American Natural History Museum used the same phrase as the Generation Genius lesson I did the day before was a nice connection.
That's good.
And then ultimately, it's just kind of me thinking about, okay, so do they understand the concept of not just information, but information as it's perceived by the senses, primarily sight. So formatting the question in a way, the assessment that kind of recalls that information, those particular phrases, and kind of brings out all those concepts. That's what I was thinking about the most.
Okay. So then how does that thinking and decision making, like you mentioned like about like the similar vocabulary, how does that decision making then affect your students? Or how do you think it affects your students?
I think it gives them the best chance at success if you're consistent with not only the concept you're presenting, but how you're presenting it. So there's a lot of different words I could have used to like talk about illusions and perception and like how the mind sees things and all that kind of stuff, but it wouldn't be helpful, especially for English learners, most importantly, because if they see the patterning of the same words used and all those different types of engagement where you're seeing it on screen, spoken, you're being presented these particular words in context of what they mean to that demonstration in the TED video. They're seeing it, on the page that they've read. That gives them the greatest chance at success.
Yes. Awesome. I like it. All right. So what are some things that you would consider like keepers from this lesson? Like what are some things that you saw or used that are things you definitely want to use again?
Definitely that American Natural History Museum website, because I've learned that it's so broad and there's so many resources on it. I could have actually clicked around on it and planned from that. For that reason. So, and then also just all the like TED Ed videos and TED Talks in general, just kind of putting in certain keywords, you'll find a video related to that in a lot of cases. So there's been a lot of great speakers on the whole TED Talk circuit. And then even just they have like short 5-minute formatted videos as well that often connect to, you know, the standards and the content of what is being taught.
Right.
So, but between those two websites, you know, just finding that kind of partnership with science and, you know, a web format that can be referenced.
All right. So what, if anything, would you change?
I mean, the format of in-person learning, when we go back to that, it'll be helpful to kind of like do an individual laboratory optical illusions, maybe, so that each group is perceiving it together and they're kind of experiencing that with people in their own group, rather than just they're passively receiving this information from the screen.
Right.
You know, and it was mostly interactive on the Natural History Museum website, where they're having to click through the illusions and see it. But it's even better, you know, if I can show that in class, or even they can do the effect of the illusion with their own classmates.
Right.
If they have like the materials to do that. So because the stuff the guy was using in the TED video wasn't really complicated.
No, not at all.
So
not at all.
Yeah, that was the cool part about it.
I did really like that. Again, I know I said this when we first came on. I really enjoyed the fact that that your students could interact with that website, because so many websites, like, they have good information on them and stuff, but like to be able to like click it and actually see the optical illusions, I think really does a good job of drawing them in a way that you can't if you're not in a classroom.
Right.
You know, those optical illusions that they'd be able to create on their own, obviously we can't do that because of just time, essentially, and not being in person. But that website did a good job of showing them what those options were, what are different kinds of optical illusions. Hang on just a second. What? Okay. Great. Close my door. Close my door. I apologize. The 5-year-old's having a week. We spent some time in the emergency room this week. He bashed his chin. So now he's like, has to tell me everything because it might be important and mom might need to know. I'm like, I don't need to know everything. I want to know you're safe.
Yeah.
I know you're safe, but I don't need to know everything. All right. So what will you do as a follow-up to this lesson?
So this one's a follow-up from 2 other lessons where like it's kind of cool because there's a Bill Nye video about the brain, and in that video it presented optical illusions. So that's kind of what kind of motivated this particular lesson. Oh, can I extend off of that concept, because that was really cool.
Perfect.
You know, from Bill Nye video from 30 years ago.
Hey, don't knock Bill Nye.
Yeah, and it's only the other program, Generation Genius, I've seen since that has done, you know, consistent standard-based videos that are kind of better than Bill Nye in some ways, or at least like try to be effective in a different way.
Right.
So that's kind of what motivated the lesson. Where would I go from this one next? I guess probably to a different topic, still within the suite of stuff about anatomy and that sort of thing. I have to decide when I want to change to the next standard in general, like natural selection or genetics that's still related to anatomy, because that's what drives anatomy, is, you know, the genes expressed and how the natural process selects for certain types of anatomy. So that's where I'd go next in general, topic wise. But I was happy with how it ended.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Very cool.